Good morning guys and welcome to another weekly vlog. Today is currently the Saturday of Easter weekend. I'm not even going to pretend to know what the exact date is because at this point in lockdown I feel like all concept of date has just gone completely out of my mind, and the only thing giving me any kind of context is just the fact that I know that it's Easter Sunday tomorrow. So it is Saturday morning and I have to say I've actually woken up feeling like such an old lady this morning. Jay has gone out for a bike ride but I've had to stay at home because yesterday I managed to pull a muscle in my back. I honestly can't believe I'm saying that. I'm nearly 23 and I feel like the old age is getting to me. And my back just feels so sore this morning, so instead of going out on a bike ride, which is what I had originally planned to do, I'm just going to stay at home and do a little bit of like stretching and yoga just to hopefully like bring my back to normal, because I don't think I've done anything major to it. I think I've just pulled it a little bit, so I'm hoping it will feel alright after today. But yeah, I'm going to do that, and then this evening Jay and I have decided that we're going to make some pizzas just because we've not really been getting like anything from takeaways recently, partially just to save money because it's so expensive if you get takeaways every week, but also because personally, I do think it's kind of unfair that people in certain takeaways are still being made to work during a time like this and they're being put in that situation, because I really do feel like it's not an essential service. So I personally don't really want to support that, because I think it's much better if those people are allowed to self-isolate like everyone else and then only key workers have to go into work. But that's a whole other tangent. But yeah, so we wanted pizzas, so we're going to make some ourselves and I can't wait. So I think I'm also going to make the dough this morning so it has plenty of time to rise. And yeah, that's kind of the plan for today. Such a beautiful day today. We've already been out for our daily walk, which was lovely just because the weather is so nice, and also now that spring is here there's like flowers everywhere, and the like foresty woodland bit that we go for a walk in always gets the most beautiful bluebells all over the floor in like about April time, and they're not fully out yet but they are starting to spring up, so it's really fun to go and check up on them every day. But now that I'm home and I've obviously just left my pizza dough rising, I've pretty much not got anything else to do for the rest of the day except for editing a video later. But whilst the weather is really nice outside, I think I might go out and do some reading in the garden and then edit this evening once the like sun has gone away, just because it seems like a waste to sit inside and edit now when I could be outside enjoying the sun. So my current read is Emma by Jane Austen, which I started about midway through last week and I'm currently about halfway into it. It is taking me a little while longer than I expected to read, just because partially, I don't think I've been that dedicated with my reading this week. I've kind of been getting distracted by the nice weather and just enjoying spending time outside. We've also been like planting lots of vegetables in the garden and stuff, so I haven't actually been spending that much time reading. But then when I have been reading it, I'm really enjoying it, but there are a lot of characters, so I'm just sort of taking it a little bit slower than normal just to make sure that I'm not getting confused about what exactly is going on. But it is a really fun read and I love Emma as a protagonist just because I think she's very like realistic in the sense that she is quite conceited and a bit judgmental to people and everything, but she's also quite nice. Like, she's lovely to her friends, but she also has those like natural flaws that make her seem like a relatable protagonist. So I'm really enjoying this book and I figure it might as well go outside and do some reading and enjoy the sun as well this afternoon. whenever I end up reading in the garden, because the weather's nice, I always do so much more reading than I do inside, because inside I always just end up getting distracted and watching something on TV or reaching for my phone or watching a YouTube video. But in the garden I actually just end up doing plenty of reading. So this afternoon I actually read about 70 pages of Emma, which is really good because I'm now like almost 3/4 of the way through, which is brilliant. So I'm probably going to finish it this weekend, fingers crossed. But I'm really enjoying it. I have my personal preference for who I want Emma to end up with at the end of the book. I'm not really sure how it's going to go, because at the beginning of the book Emma was basically quite against getting married because she basically doesn't need to financially, so she's like, why bother, I might as well just stay in my comfortable life with my dad. So she might not end up getting married, but I just have a feeling that she probably will. And I have one character in particular that I really want her to end up with. I won't say who because I don't want to spoil it if you've not read it yet, but I have a personal preference. But there's also another character that I think maybe she could end up with, so I'm just going to have to obviously keep reading to see what happens there. But for now I'm quite hungry, so I've got my giant bowl of pizza dough and I'm going to make pizza. So for my pizzas, I'm going for just some grated vegan mozzarella for my cheese, and then my favourite pizza topping ever is mushrooms. It's just not even worth eating if there's no mushrooms on it. And then I've also got some olives, which are a relatively new obsession of mine. I never used to really like them, but then I started eating them, and I feel like if you actually make yourself eat them a few times, you actually get a little bit addicted. So I've got some olives, some basil, and also some spinach. So let's do it. It's chocolate Christmas, which I'm so excited about. Obviously I mean Easter, and all of my eggs are up there. Well, actually some of those are Jay's eggs. My vegan Easter eggs are here, but I'm so excited to dig into them. I feel like the only two chocolates that just taste like superior are Easter eggs and like advent calendar chocolate. I don't know what it is. Oh, and maybe even chocolate buttons as well. I just think when you put chocolate in a specific shape, it elevates the flavour so much. So I'm super excited to dig into those a little bit later on, but obviously being a sensible adult, I'm gonna have a normal breakfast first. So I'm just gonna go and have some porridge and a cup of tea, and then I'll probably have a little bit of chocolate as well. I haven't really done much today except for eating. Obviously there's been plenty of chocolate, and also as you saw we had a huge roast dinner which was delicious. But I figure why stop now, and I'm about to go and make myself a hot chocolate, which I am super excited about, partially because I'm going to use a melted bit of one of my Easter eggs to actually make the hot chocolate, which just sounds incredible, but also because I have this new milk frother to try. I had one of those like handheld whiskey milk frothers before, but I broke it the other day because it fell out of the cupboard and smashed, and I figured I might as well just like upgrade, I guess. So I've got one of these ones which I'm hoping will froth up my oat milk incredibly. So I'm really excited to give this a try, and also to have a hot chocolate. And then there is an Easter special of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on TV tonight, so I'm just going to settle down and watch that. And in case you were wondering, I have done a grand total of 0 pages of reading so far today, so I'm going to probably try and do some this evening, but we'll just see. I was debating whether or not spending money on a fancy milk frother was a bit of a waste of money, but looking at how frothy this is, I think it was definitely a worthwhile investment. That was going to be, oh my god, so good. I'm now challenging myself to use this self-isolation quarantine period to try and learn how to do latte art, because obviously this is just quite basic, but it was my first try, so we've got plenty of time to try and get better at it. But for now, I'm going to go and watch Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and enjoy this really delicious hot chocolate. Good morning guys and happy Monday. I started out the week with a yoga class with one of my favourite yoga teachers, and honestly I have to say that the fact that so many yoga studios and yoga teachers have moved to online classes during this quarantine lockdown period is literally the thing that is pulling me through, just because I feel like of all the things I would do outside of the house, yoga was probably the main thing. It was the way that I started most of my days, and I just feel like being able to keep that routine in my life throughout this has just made me feel a lot more normal. So I'm absolutely loving my morning yoga classes, and it's actually really fun to be able to just literally roll out of bed, get onto the mat and just start yoga without having to actually go anywhere. So I'm actually kind of loving it. But for the rest of the day, we don't really have any major plans. We're just going out for our daily walk now, probably just going to be out for a couple of hours and just get a few steps in, get some fresh air. And then my main task for the rest of the day is I'm hoping to finish Emma. I have just over 100 pages left, so I'm not sure how feasible it is for me to finish it in one day, but that is kind of my challenge to myself for this Easter Monday, because like I said, I don't really have much else on, so it's either this or just falling down the hole of watching loads and loads of YouTube videos. So I feel like this is probably the better choice, but we will have to wait and see what I actually end up doing. Good morning guys and happy Monday. I started out the week with a yoga class with one of my favourite yoga teachers, and honestly I have to say that the fact that so many yoga studios and yoga teachers have moved to online classes during this quarantine lockdown period is literally the thing that is pulling me through, just because I feel like of all the things I would do outside of the house, yoga was probably the main thing. It was the way that I started most of my days, and I just feel like being able to keep that routine in my life throughout this has just made me feel a lot more normal. So I'm absolutely loving my morning yoga classes, and it's actually really fun to be able to just literally roll out of bed, get onto the mat and just start yoga without having to actually go anywhere. So I'm actually kind of loving it. But for the rest of the day, we don't really have any major plans. We're just going out for our daily walk now, probably just going to be out for a couple of hours and just get a few steps in, get some fresh air. And then my main task for the rest of the day is I'm hoping to finish Emma. I have just over 100 pages left, so I'm not sure how feasible it is for me to finish it in one day, but that is kind of my challenge to myself for this Easter Monday, because like I said, I don't really have much else on, so it's either this or just falling down the hole of watching loads and loads of YouTube videos. So I feel like this is probably the better choice, but we will have to wait and see what I actually end up doing. actually managed to surprise myself because it's only about 5:30 in the evening and I just finished up reading Emma, which I'm so happy about because I've really enjoyed reading this book. It's the first Austen book that I've read in quite some time, and I have to say I think it might be my favourite. I just think there was something about this story and the way that it was like so light-hearted and fun, and Emma was just such an intriguing protagonist just because I feel like she was so flawed but had plenty of room for progression and really grew as a character that just made her like so compelling, and I really just enjoyed it, and I found her to be the most compelling Austen protagonist that I've read so far anyway. I just think she was really fun, really relatable, and I just really enjoyed it. I do just think this book in general was a really surprising read for me. I didn't really have too much expectation going in, which was always good because I think it's nice to have a bit of a blank slate when you're going into a new book, and I think particularly with some classics it can be hard to have such a blank slate because they're so well known, and I feel like maybe when I read Pride and Prejudice I already had a pretty clear idea of what was going to happen at the end, so I guess my reading experience was a little bit different, whereas with this book I really had no idea of any of the characters other than obviously the fact that the main character was Emma, and I didn't have any idea where the plot was really going to go, so I really went into it with an open mind, and it meant that I could really enjoy the plot. And there was some plot twists in this book that I really did not expect, which was a really pleasant surprise as well. I feel like at the beginning of this book I made a prediction about what I thought was going to happen in terms of one of the romances of the book, and then towards the middle that really sort of got thrown out of the bus, and I really didn't know what was going to go on because it really started to get a little bit more shaken up. But then towards the end of the book it turns out I was actually right, and I was honestly being very vague there just because I didn't want to give any spoilers, but this book really was a surprising one because Jane Austen threw a big plot twist in there, and it certainly surprised me, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, this was a really fun read, definitely my favourite Austen that I've read so far. Absolutely a 5-star read, and I'm just super glad that I've read it. I'm now really looking forward to not reading the film, obviously, watching the film version, which just came out in February, because that was actually the main inspiration for me finally picking up this book, and the film just looks so fun, and I'm hoping that it will capture the really light-hearted and fun and just silly elements of this book, which I enjoyed so much, so I'm hoping to get to that in the next few weeks hopefully. But yeah, I'm really glad that I finished this one. Now I'm actually going to be doing a 24-hour readathon tomorrow evening, going through Tuesday to Wednesday, which obviously is going to have its own separate video, so I'm trying to pick a book to read between now and then, which I'm hoping might be a quick read, and the one I've selected is going to be Educated by Tara Westover, which is a memoir. I'm really looking forward to reading this one because it's basically about a woman who escapes a cult-like upbringing and has to kind of make her own way in the world, and it sounds like a really interesting story. I can't remember if I've mentioned in this video yet, but I am actually taking part in the OWLs Magical Readathon throughout April, and Emma was not a book that matched any of the prompts for that, but I really wanted to read it anyway, so I just kind of paused my OWLs Readathon for a little bit. But Educated actually matches one of the prompts. I believe it matches arithmancy, which the prompt was to read a book which is outside of your usual genre, and I very rarely read non-fiction, which this book obviously is because it's a memoir, so I'm going to be starting this one later on this evening. But for now I've done plenty of reading and I'm feeling a little bit hungry, so I think I'm going to go make dinner and then start reading later on. Morning guys, it is now Tuesday and I feel like this morning is going so quickly, probably because I just spent a good while at the supermarket, because of course you can only go to the supermarket like one person per house and then you have to queue because of social distancing, and so I ended up spending a lot longer there than I probably normally would have, but I am glad because I've now got all of my weekly shopping for the week done And I've also bought some baking supplies because I'm going to be doing some baking this week, which I'm really looking forward to. But aside from that, I've also made a start on reading Educated, which I am loving. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, this is a book which I've been wanting to read for a while, but I've also kind of been a little bit daunted by just because I don't really read much non-fiction. But this story or memoir is so compelling that it kind of reads like fiction just because the things that are happening are kind of so alien to my personal life experience that it kind of feels like a fiction, even though obviously I know that it's not. So if you are not familiar with this story, it basically is the memoir of Tara Westover, and she was basically born into a like prepper family. So she's from a very religious Mormon family who were basically prepping for the end days, which they believed were coming like imminently, and her and I believe 4 of her other siblings were never registered. They didn't get birth certificates, they didn't go to school, so basically she was kind of like an off-grid child in every sense of the word, and so her perception of the world was very just like blanketed, like she didn't really have much of an idea about what was going on outside of this little compound of her family. So it's a really, really interesting story. I am granted only about 30 pages in, so at the point that I'm reading she is only about 9 years old, so there is still so much more to come, and I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of it. But so far it's really interesting, and I really didn't need to be worried about the fact that it was non-fiction because it is literally so easy to read and so compelling. So I'm really happy about that, and hoping that because it's a nice sunny day today I'll be able to do some reading in the garden and hopefully get through quite a bit of this. But yeah, I feel like these days surprisingly are going so quickly. I was a little bit worried that in like self-isolation and not being able to really go anywhere or see anyone outside of the house, that the days would feel so long, but in actual fact I feel like we're getting up, having breakfast, doing a couple of things, going for our daily walk, and then all of a sudden it is like 5 p.m. and I really don't know where the days are going. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got planned for the day. We're going to be going for a walk soon and then doing some reading. But yeah, I'm really hoping to get through as much of this as possible today because, like I mentioned, I'm doing a 24-hour readathon tonight. And then after that, the stay-at-home reading rush starts. So if possible, I would like to be able to finish this, but that might be a little bit optimistic. Okay, well I think I might have actually been a little bit optimistic about finishing this one before starting my readathon later, because after making dinner it's already nearly like 7 p.m. and I don't really feel like it's that sensible to force myself to try and finish a book before going into a full 24 hours of reading, because I also want to really be able to enjoy this book because it is such an interesting story. So instead I've still got like just over 100 pages left to go. I also think I misjudged how many pages it had. I thought it was only about 300, but it's actually just under 400, so I've still got about 180 pages left of this book to go before I finish it. So instead of trying to cram it in now in the next hour, I'm just going to pop this book to one side and I will pick it up tomorrow evening / Thursday morning once I finish my 24-hour readathon. So because I'll obviously be filming a separate vlog for my 24-hour readathon, I'll just catch up with you tomorrow evening after that, and once I can start reading Educated again. I just finished reading Educated and this book was incredible. I was really excited to read this one because it sounded like such an interesting story, but I don't think I even had any idea of how interesting and compelling this story was going to be. Obviously, like I said, it was a non-fiction, it's a memoir, so I didn't really know exactly how it was going to be told, but it did really come across as a story which in many parts sounded fictional just because of how bizarre some of the things Tara Westover experienced, and I just think it was such a compelling story that I actually really want to start reading more memoirs, because I think there's a little bit more gravity maybe to a story when you know it's actually based on someone's real life. But this book was very different from what I expected, but in all of the best ways possible. I think from the blurb I had assumed that this was going to be about a girl who sort of grew up in a cult but then cut ties with it at age 16 and moved on with her life, but it was very, very far from that. The sort of gradual removal from the life that she'd grown up with and the new life she was building from herself was so much more intertwined than I expected, and it was a constant sort of back and forth between the world as she'd been sort of brought up to see it and then the new world that she was being educated differently to sort of view, and these two sort of very conflicting experiences of life. And it's sort of a very gradual, I guess, education, as the title would suggest, about sort of trying to understand the world as she wants to view it and sort of making her own, I guess, journey towards figuring out how she wants to fit in the world and what her place is going to be in terms of her family and everything else outside of that. So it was such an incredible story. It was actually really emotional at times, just because you as an outsider can recognise that she's been subjected to some absolutely terrible things from her family, but obviously because they are her family and she's been brought up with them and she can somewhat understand their point of view, there's also a real struggle for her to cut ties and to move away from the way that she's been brought up. So it is a really, really sort of compelling, emotional, and just a really, really incredible story. So I would highly recommend picking this one up if you are at all interested, because I just think it was such an amazing story. I cannot even get over it. Definitely 5 stars. But yeah, this was so good, so I'm super glad that I finally got around to reading this one. But that will bring this reading vlog to an end, because today is actually Thursday the 16th of April, which is when the Reading Rush stay-at-home readathon starts. So I'm going to be taking part in that between now and Sunday, but I'm going to be doing a separate vlog for that. So I hope you've enjoyed hearing all of my thoughts on Emma as well as on Educated, because both of those were incredible books and I had such a brilliant time reading them, as well as just doing all of the other fun stuff I've been doing at home this week. So thanks for watching. Let me know if you've read these books and what you thought of them, because I would love to chat about them with you, seeing as they were both such incredible reads. But yeah, I'll see you in my next vlog.